already know he's the bomb because you've been smiling bigger this year than ever before. And so am I. So let's show him how much we love him. Ladies and gentlemen, Chef Rome. You know what, Tony, you said it best. I mean, he is a superstar in the culinary field. And it's such an honor just that you're here. What took you so long?
Welcome. Listen, I waited till they called for me. I didn't want to come too soon. They sent me back.
Can we just talk about that a little bit? We just want to know all about your background and, you know, how you even got into cooking. But for starters, how did this Soul Train Cruise connection happen?
So, my attorney, who's here,
starting with the attorney.
Well, listen, yes. Absolutely. We was friends with someone that was working with StarVista, and they were talking about the food, and he knew I was a big-time Soul Train fan. And he said, listen, you know, we got to do something about the food. We hear our guests, and we're listening to them, so let's do something to make sure that they're happy. But what really put it over the top, because I get that pitch a lot, right? Different situations, I get that pitch quite often. But what really put it over the top for me was the foundation. And that was it. And you know, as black men, we have to think about our mental wellness, something we don't talk enough about, you know what I mean? And I just thought that for me, it's a great cause. And come on, Soul Train is the hippest trip in the world.
The relationship makes sense.
You know, we were very excited that you decided to join us. I mean, I think the very beginning is after years of doing the Soul Train Cruise and hearing different people make suggestions and things of that nature. I thought it was really important that we finally get someone with your skill set and your background on this ship to see, you know, what we could really do. And it's been the bomb, man. I mean, from the chicken to the greens to the poplar to, I mean, just everything we've done. The salmon, I mean, it's just unbelievable. People are ranting and raving about it. They're standing in line for, you know, as long as they can possibly stand in line to get the food, you know. So that's another thing I wanted to ask you briefly. How does that work? How do you start to prepare or think about some of the things that you do based on the crowd, and this crowd in particular?
Absolutely. You certainly, first and foremost, got to know your crowd. You have to know your crowd and know who you're cooking for. And when you're talking about soul food and black folk, let me tell you something. We knew we had to understand the assignment coming here with, what, 2,200 people? Yeah, so when StarVista reached out, you know, and they expressed what they expressed about what they would like to see. And then when you got on the call, I knew it was very real. And so we started months ago with the menu, developing the menu, and okay, what's going to be the most appealing? How do we satisfy as many people as we possibly can? How do we hit everyone? Because it's not just the collard greens. We have some vegans, right? We have people with celiac disease, pescatarians. So we had to make sure that everybody was accommodated as much as possible. And the young lady stopped me today and she says, I'm allergic to a lot of stuff. I said, really? Like what? She says, well, I can't have broccoli. I can't have herbs. I can't do rosemary. I said, okay, did you let anybody know? She says, well, no. I said, well, just listen. Let us know. You're telling me now. Here's my information. If I'm able and fortunate to come back again, we got you covered, right? And we can make sure that you get what you need, because at the end of the day, you know, great service is long remembered after a good meal. And that's what it's about.
You know, I'm a foodie. I love good food. And when I go to a restaurant, it's not just the taste of the food, but it's the presentation, right? It's gotta look right. I like the ambiance of the restaurant. But at the end of the day, it's gotta taste really good. So whoever's back in the kitchen needs to know what they're doing. The other day, I was fortunate enough to be one of the judges in the chef cook-off. And they didn't even let these guys know, like those cooking shows you watch. They didn't know the ingredients until the very last minute. And they had, how long did you have, like 30 minutes?
40 minutes.
40 minutes?
40 minutes.
But it was, the ingredients were just crazy. I would have freaked out if they said make something that's, you know, even halfway edible out of it. But not only did all three of the chefs, he won by the way, not only was it, you know, edible, but all three were delicious. And this, you don't just wake up like this. So tell us a little bit about your background and how you know, the celebrities you cook for and just the road that led you to this.
Well, first and foremost, when people, you know, ask me about cooking, I always first tell them it's the gift God gave me. I started at the age of 7 cooking, just watching my mother. And I got up the next morning and tried to duplicate everything I saw her do. She made pancakes that previous morning. So I had pancakes all over the kitchen. Stacks of them. And when she came to the doorway, she said to me, she said, turn down the flame, it's too high. Well, if you're 7 years old messing with a gas stove, usually you're gonna get your behind to it. But for me, she cultivated the gift. And I challenge any parent out there, if you see that your child has a gift at an early or interest, you don't know it's all the time that it's the gift, but it's an interest first. And then the passion develops from that. And that's where it came from.
I've been figuring out the title of your new book, your new cookbook.
New cookbook.
Pancakes?
Oh, Spice and
No,
Spectrum.
I figured out a new title.
Uh-oh. Let me have it.
I'm scared.
You ready for this?
I don't know.
You ready? All right. Turn down the flame, it's too high.
Wow. And then the subtitle would be The Art of Cooking at the Right Temperature.
Now,
How much is that gonna cost me, man?
That's a winner. That's a winner.
you're going to hear from Tony's attorneys.
Right. You know what? That's brilliant, man. And I'll tell you what, if we use that, Tony,
I'm a bad man. That's all.
if we use that, man, you know what? The proceeds will go to, some of the proceeds will go to your foundation.
But speaking of books, talk a little bit about your cookbook that's out and what's coming.
So the first two cookbooks is, the first one is Eat Like a Celebrity. It was the 2014 Cookbook of the Year by the African American Literary Awards Show. The second cookbook is called Carolina Soul. It's a book about foods that are indigenous to North and South Carolina. Because we have the ocean on one side, we got the mountains on the other. So we're talking about fresh seafood and moonshine, right? So see, she has some. And so I wanted to touch on all of those things that make the Carolinas so great. Oftentimes people don't realize that it used to be one state, but now North and South Carolina is two different places, so they offer different things.
And the new one?
And the new one is called Spice and Spectrum. It's a cookbook that's geared towards bringing awareness to those on the spectrum, Asperger's, autism, you know, things like that. There's a lot of people who are dealing with those things, had to overcome a lot of things during COVID. And so we took stories from different youths, young adults who love to cook, who have these disorders, and we bring their stories to life. So Spice and Spectrum comes out April 1st.
You know, I've got two questions. Thank you for telling us about that book. The first question is, can you call out the names of your team, the other chefs that are here on the team?
Absolutely. Chef Sundre Rhodes, he's from New Orleans. He has a passion for cooking. He told us a little bit of his story the other day, how he got started in college. And, you know, they jacked up the red beans and rice. And he called his mama, and she said, "Well, baby, I don't know how much to tell you to put in it, but this will go in it. You figure the rest out." And he had a real passion, and this man can bring flavors like nobody's business. That's Chef Sundre Rose. And then there's Ricky the Chef, originally from Chicago. There you go. Boy, let me tell y'all something about people in Chicago. They think the best of the world come from Chicago. Y'all borrowed Michael Jordan from North Carolina. All right. But he is an amazing chef from Chicago, but he lives in Atlanta now, and he brings that great northern boldness, right? A great approach to cooking, that think outside the box to cooking. And these guys travel with me around the world, all over the world. We're in some crazy situations sometimes with the spaces we're cooking in, but somehow or another we're fortunate to come out with some 5-star meals.
You know, it's easy. Oh, I'm sorry, Tony, but
No, you can interrupt me if you want to.
I thought I was...
Go ahead, it's you. All you. Go ahead.
We'll get to our second question in a minute, Tony.
I had 2 questions, not just
okay,
one.
then I might as well get it in when I can.
Boy,
So, I was just gonna... It'll be okay, Tony. You'll be all right. So, for many of us who enjoy cooking, but sometimes those creative ideas don't pan out. You know, you're in the kitchen and you're like, you know what? I've been making this salmon the same way every time I make salmon, or whatever the case might be. Are there any tips that you can just give us regular? We think we're chefs, but we're not. We're just in the kitchen every day trying to cook something really unique and delicious. But help us. Like, how do you figure out, okay, if I do this, and then maybe the next time I make it, it'll be that? You know, just to get creative in the kitchen.
Well, first and foremost, my 2 cookbooks are on Amazon and Barnes & Noble. Let me tell you something about that. People, now society, there's more foodies now than ever because of the Food Network and the Cooking Channel and Google. Google is your friend. And at the end of the day, there's so many different areas that are contributing to what you see out there informationally that it allows you to you know, learn what you need to learn or what you're trying to figure out. But the key is taking what you've learned, putting your own spin on it. How many of y'all enjoyed the smothered catfish the other night? I got that recipe from my mother. She made that from the time I was a little boy until, you know, she couldn't anymore. But I've been tweaking that that dish for years. Years I've been tweaking it to make it my own. And then you have the result. And that's the same approach that I would challenge anyone to do.
So can I ask my question now?
Yes, you can ask too if you want to.
Thank you very much.
I'm just generous like that.
I wanted to know what you thought about, for example, say if you cook that smothered catfish or something, and I tell you, well, I don't like it. I like it this way, or my mother cooked it that way. How do you deal with taste buds of other people who may not like your food? I mean, how do you relate to that overall?
Well, you know, first of all, Tony, that's a phenomenal question because it's no different, and I use the analogy of an athlete. LeBron James is the best in the world right now, right? And when he shoots a shot, chances are he's going to hit it, but he doesn't always. Cooking and being a chef is the exact same thing. Just because I'm a pro, that don't mean I'm not going to miss sometimes. And because I am by trade a personal chef, I first had to realize that it's never about me anyway. I just have the basis to spring forward with to be able to accommodate what your taste bud is. So, and I tell young chefs all the time, if you can take self out of it and make it about your clientele and knowing your audience, you have a better chance of being successful, and especially if you're well-rounded. I can go and cook for a Jewish family. I can go cook for a Muslim family. I can come on Soul Train and cook for some soul food. Or, you know what I mean? Or do the same thing in Greece. So, but it's about being educated and knowing your craft.
I love that. And that can go to any profession.
Absolutely.
When you take it off of yourself, even the artists that we're seeing on all these stages, in their minds, I'm sure they're doing this for us. They're communicating to us. It's not all about, see me, I'm the star, I'm here on stage. They're giving and they're so generous. So I love that. I love that that's the same thing. And Mr. Cornelius, did you have 2 questions?
I asked my second
You
question.
did?
That was my second question.
Okay, so then I'm free to say something?
But go ahead.
Okay.
Go ahead.
So this
It's your show. It's your show.
I'm asking, you know, I'm
Your show.
tiptoeing.
He's so smooth with it. Go ahead. Go ahead.
Go ahead, baby.
That's what you want to do. What you
Well,
want
you
to
know,
do.
Angela,
It's all about you.
she's got a show on
Pillow Talk
some
or
station
Sirius
called Pillow
XM.
Talk, you know, and she comes up here acting like this is Pillow Talk. This ain't Pillow
Oh,
Talk.
are you sure?
All right?
Are you so sure it's not? Thank you. It's always pillow talk. And so to that end, so you know, I believe that food can be an aphrodisiac. And so I know that you're a celebrity chef and you cook in people's homes. And
Where is
things
this
like
going?
that. No, I just want you to give us a little background. I mean, I've never cooked for anybody, you know, to be paid. No one's going to pay me to cook anything. However, you know, I'm just wondering what some of the requests are like. You know, are like for couples. They're like, you know, we need someone, a celebrity couple, celebrities. How is that? And then who are some of the celebrities that you cook for?
Some of the celebrities I've cooked. Now, I used to be Shaquille O'Neal's personal chef. The year they won the championship in Miami, the first year, I was personal chef for 25 years to different NBA players. I did the Obama's second inauguration, the Global Peace Inaugural Ball. The King of Sweden, King Carl Gustav, Boys to Men, who will be on Soul Train next year. I had an opportunity to cook for them. The list goes on. Star Jones, and the list goes on. Cam Newton, you know. But to your question about some of the requests, we get them all. And, you know, I'll tell you a crazy story. A lady hired me to come to her home to cook for a group of her very close friends. And she says, I need you to sign a confidentiality form. No biggie. You're working with athletes, entertainers, and such. You know, I get that. So I didn't even think about it. Yes, no problem. I'm coming in your home. Privacy. No problem. We got there and we cooked up all this food. And at 9 o'clock, time it got good and dark, it turned into a swingers party. I'm gonna leave it at that.
No.
This ain't pillow talk.
Oh, that was good though. Thank you for that.
True story, true story. So we get all kind of requests.
Yeah.
You know, let me y'all sing Baby Boy.
Everybody.
You remember when Melvin was in the kitchen?
Yep.
And unfortunately, my first name is Melvin. So and then people learn that, and then when they get ready to pay me, like, oh, I'm gonna need you to come back and recreate. I'm not doing that.
What was the scene for those of us who didn't see the movie?
What?
Come on.
When he was in there,
What
HBO?
It's adult. It's adult.
All he had on was his apron. Let's just leave it at that. All you saw was his black ass.
And that's how they wanted Chef Rome.
I wasn't going.
What are you trying to start? You trying to start something. But Chef, listen, there was something we talked about, you mentioned earlier, and you talked about how to romance people when you're cooking. You know, whether it be a male romancing a female, or a female romancing a male, or a female romancing a male, a female, or a male romancing a male.
or however it goes.
However it goes.
And I told you it was pillow talk, but go
Okay,
on.
but anyway, so give us some advice on that and the attitude, or what should one be doing when you're trying to, whether it be impress or, you know.
I think the best way for me to answer that is this. I'm a chef, right? And the number one thing that, you know, when I was single, that women would say to me, well, you're a chef. I'm not, you know, I ain't gonna cook for you. Well, I'm gonna do that for you, the chef. You got it. And I'm thinking to myself, I don't care if it's hamburger helper. The fact that you took out the time to do it for me means more than anything. Anything. So if you're gonna cook for your significant other or somebody, your friend with benefit, whatever, do it from your heart, right? That's really what it's about. And I don't expect somebody to cook like I do. Because that's what I do. But the fact that you did it, right? And so if you want to romance somebody, start the conversation early in the day. Baby, what you need? What you want? I go. What can I do for you? Damn it. What can I do for you? And then do what you do. But let them know that as long as they get it, and you don't have to say, I slaved over this. Or they'll see it, right? And if they don't appreciate that, then move around. Keep it pushing. But that's really what it's about, doing it from your heart.
That's beautiful. And it's really obvious that you love what you do, right? So how does it feel when just from your standpoint, here you are, first time on the Soul Train cruise. This is our 10th year, and it makes so much sense having you doing what you do for this cruise. So we're just as excited to see you as I'm sure you're excited to hear how much we appreciate you.
Absolutely.
But have you been getting a lot of feedback? And how's that been?
Let me tell you something. Overall, the feedback has been amazing, and I can't thank you all enough, because let me tell you something. When we realized that, yes, the excitement is Soul Train, and I'd never been here before, and I really wanted to do it, but when you have that moment, when you stop, you're like, hold up, that's 2,000, and we'll let you know. We'll let you know. I got one lady now, man. I'm avoiding her every time oh God, I gotta go this way. Oh, Jesus.
Here she comes.
Oh, here she come with that same salt allergy. What you ordering for again for, man? But guess what? On the real, because we're professional chefs, we appreciate the constructive criticism as well as the compliments. Gotta be able to have both, right? And because we do want to hear from you, because what that does is allow us to service you better. It allows us to say, okay, let's go back in here and have this conversation, and let's change this, let's fix this. Y'all ate so many collard greens in the first 2 hours of 500 pounds. Literally. Listen, I'm not making it up. And so we was like, man, we gotta start mixing the collards with the cabbage, and this don't work. We thought that little 1,200 pounds we ordered out the gate was gonna do something. It didn't. Y'all let them know real quick. I don't know what the budget was, but you over it.
Did you have any idea that collard greens was going to be a hit when you started this, or did you have a...
Well, let's see. Black folks, collard greens. Black folks, collard greens.
But I hear y'all and I agree, but there's a flip side. Because if it don't go right,
Oh, yeah.
right?
You're going to hear
We'd have
about
been
it.
stuck with a whole lot of collard greens, and then that lady would have called me for something else. I figured when I was writing the menus, because originally I sent 3 different menus. I sent what I call Sunday best, which is your typical soul food. I sent a Caribbean menu, and then I sent a New Orleans menu. And then so when they said, well, why don't you combine them in some kind of way, pull out what you really want to happen, and let's just do that. So I flew here in October during the malt shop cruise, and I met the staff, I met the executive chefs, and we sat down and we had a real conversation and said, okay, who are your key people? Well, a lot of your key people then were leaving, so they had a total turnover of people that I actually met with the exception of the executive chefs. So the training that I was giving in October, when we got here 3 days before Soul Train started, we had to start training people again. So the first thing I did, I said, Chef, I'll cook the collard greens. I'll cook the cabbage.
That's what happened.
I'm gonna make the sweet potato cheesecake. I said, don't send anything out unless you're going to buy me first. And so, of course we had some challenges here and there, right? But you can expect that when you're cooking from the masses. It's not as easy as people would think. But I think we did all right.
I do want to ask you about that logo.
Oh, the logo. Wow. So
We gotta make this one quick, because our director is saying we need to move on. Angela
He's giving
asked
us
too
the
many
hook.
damn questions,
you gave me the hook, man. You gave me the Apollo hook.
Yeah.
Oh, we taking questions from the audience or no?
Yeah,
Okay, I'll make it quick. The logo stands for my three versus your three. So that's the logos you've been seeing on the t-shirts we wear. So what happened was, we would go around battling other chefs. Oh, you think y'all can cook? Cool. We're battling. And so we literally were traveling around the country taking on other chefs. Yeah, and we were doing it raising money for different charities. So that the real winner is the charity.
Yeah.
So my three versus your three. And then we stopped because people was bringing their grandmas and aunties and cousins, and she make the best collard green, and you can't.
Turned into something else.
And then we had to send them on back. The home grandma, don't do that now.
Well, lastly, I just want to thank you for being a part of the Conference wine tasting. It was a wonderful event, and people really learned a lot. And the fact that you teamed with a expert wine cellar expert in wine, a sommelier. I didn't want to get that wrong. That was fantastic, so I really appreciate that, Chef Ron. I really do.
Let me just say real quick, it's an honor and a privilege in Soul Train. Come on. I had to get on my knees and say thank you. To God. To God. That's who I'm. What's your name? What's your name? I appreciate you.
You know what? That's between me and him.
They're shouting out requests.
Believe me, he won everybody over. So
Yes, he
chances
did.
are that's the case.
All right, so that question was, you want him back next year? Ladies and gentlemen, Chef Rome, give him another round of applause. We want to thank you all so much for joining us. For Tony Cornelius, Chef Rome, and myself, Angela Stribling, thank you so much for joining us on All Access Pass.
Announcing the Soul Train Cruise 2024, the ultimate family reunion for fans of classic soul and R&B. Groove to over 50 live performances from Boys to Men, The Temptations, War, Stephanie Mills, Tower of Power, The Manhattans featuring Gerald Alston, Melba Moore, The Dramatics featuring L.J. Reynolds, The Miracles, Radio, The Urban Guerrilla Orchestra, Bobby Wilson, cruise host Tony Cornelius, and many more. Plus, go behind the scenes and get to know the artists at celebrity interactive events, including panel discussions, artist Q&As, and more. Departing from Fort Lauderdale, January 27, 2024, this 7-day voyage will sail in the luxurious Holland America Line New Amsterdam and stop in Tortola and St. Martin. Enjoy fine dining, sun-soaked tropical destinations, non-stop performances and events, dancing till dawn, and more. Soul Train Cruise sells out every year, so don't wait. Come celebrate the good life aboard the Hippest Trip at Sea.